Hope you had a good 4th of July week and weekend. I'm just getting my head back in after being at the cabin for a week, so bear with me as we get through all this stuff. A lot of updates on the team side as always, but there's just in general, as I was going through Message Center, and I think this is one of the things that I kind of take away from this last month, there was a lot of updates, way too many for me to put them all in here. So make sure specifically for your organization, what are you using for services, and make sure you check on those updates, because most of the time, and I'm not saying all the time, most of the time, dates slip. And in fact, we have an update that's now slipped twice as far as dates and when it's going to be coming out. The other thing too, they will make an update, or actually it'll say update on that Message Center. Sometimes it's about content. So it's not just always about a date. Sometimes content has changed, more details about whatever is being changed in that Message Center post. So keep that in mind. But for July 10th, let's take a look at what we got going on. So a couple things. We're going to start on Exchange Online and M365 apps. So key document updates are going to be highlighted in the profile card. If you're familiar with the profile card, it's going to give you a lot of information as far as that person, including organizational details, those kind of things. On top of that, now we're going to be getting some of these document updates that they've been working on, things that they have been working on, or maybe that's related to me. So they'll be displayed in the profile card. It'll focus on, for you especially, will be your key collaborators that you will see information about. So if I'm working with Michelle all the time, somebody looks at my profile card, I'll see some of that stuff because Michelle and I work all the time. Admins, this is important. Admins can disable this because, as you know, you have some people in your organization that you need to get their head in the right space before you can show this information, right? So that's important to keep that in mind. Notify your users on this one specifically, especially that's a change. Another one is happening, again, from the M365 suite. Specifically, this is on the Whiteboard app, the Microsoft Whiteboard app. And that's not just the one that you have in the Teams meetings, but that's also the one that you have the web. There's a desktop app, those types of things. This one is interface change that's starting to roll out here mid to late July. And it's really going to be focusing on the web, the Teams, and Windows app versions. Basically, that toolbar that we had on the left-hand side for the longest time now is moving down to the bottom, and it's just going to be a little bit easier to be able to use as you're doing things. I know I've used Whiteboard a bunch, and I like this improvement overall because it's just going to be easier for me to get at my information. It's also easier to discover notes, reactions, comments, those things that are not necessarily going to be found in that toolbar. So this is another thing. Let your end users know what's going on with this particular change that's happening fairly soon. All right, another M365 app, specifically when we're talking about doing things like sharing a file through PowerPoint Live. So PowerPoint Live is this capability. I'm using it right now. Right, so this ability to be able to bring a deck that I already have, or I can actually bring it in from Teams, or I can literally go into the deck and say present in Teams. And that's what you see here. This here kind of shows that present in Teams set of things. Same scenario, but it's popping up PowerPoint Live. Well, before this change, literally you had to upload it into your cloud, OneDrive or SharePoint or someplace, right, before you could start using it. Now you don't. Actually, it's part of the process that when you go and say, hey, I want this file, right, literally it'll go, hey, where do you want it to grab from? If you don't already have it in there, it'll say, hey, why don't you save it there first? It has to be there before it goes, but at least now it'll prompt you to go save it before jumping it into the Teams meeting and then starting PowerPoint Live at that point. So that's a big change that's happening. Again, notify your users of this happening here. And that's mid-July to mid-August that's going to be rolling out. All right. I do have a Viva one. We have a brand new app that's coming in Viva Suite, generally available starting here in July 20th. If you haven't heard about this, think of this as this capability for managers, team leads to be able to poll the group, right, and get feedback, right? And that's at any time. You don't have to go through a big, huge process to do this. Hey, I just need to understand the direction that we're going, if this is working, if not. So it's really about getting, requesting and then receiving that feedback from your employees, right? This is going to be available to those who already have the Viva Suite licenses, and it's going to be accessible through Teams app as well as the web version of it. Additionally, there's going to be, from an admin perspective, they're going to be adding this into the service health dashboard starting around July 13th. Just understand, you're not going to get anything until after July 20th when that service rolls out into your tenant. Okay. If you are going to be utilizing this, this is something that you want to make sure that you let your end users know about, because it is a change in how they do it, especially managers who are going to be probably utilizing this. Another big one, and and we've been kind of talking about it a little bit. You may have been hearing this on the socials and all that, but the new Teams version, we are moving further down the line as far as what's happening. They're doing more capabilities, adding more capabilities across the board, but you have to understand some dates and some things that are going to be happening around this, because eventually this is going to take over Teams, right? So it's going to be new Teams. It's not going to be, I don't even know what we're calling the current version of Teams. Maybe eventually it'll be called Classic Teams. Who knows? But really, there is some more information about what the timeline is as far as when this is going to be the default app versus not. Understand that if you do have deployed, there is a PowerShell switch called Use New Teams Client. And if you have that set to disable, it will honor that throughout this whole process. So keep that one in mind. Yeah, Brian, and I would agree with that. Yeah, it's definitely not like for like. It's getting closer, and some of the new features are getting better. In fact, I've heard some rumors that we may be adding some new features to the new version of Teams. That hasn't been clarified yet, or the actual release date. We're not quite 100% positive on that, but this is getting closer because we are seeing some inklings of that. So mid to late July, right? Keep in mind, it's going to begin making Teams default app if the admin policy is set to Microsoft default, right? So if you go into the Teams admin center, you go into apps, and you have that setting that says, hey, when do you want to get the new version of it? Well, by the way, starting this time at the end of the month, by the end of the month, if you have it set to Microsoft default, it's going to start doing that, right? Everybody's gonna start seeing, try a new Teams, and that toggle is gonna be in the upper left-hand corner. And if you want to, you could deploy it directly. And thank you, Michael, for sending that. Yes, that's a good post on that. In September, it's gonna be everybody's gonna start getting this. Making the new Teams is gonna be the default app. So we're looking at later in this year that we're going to be getting this a little bit more feature parity, and should be at GA around that time. No dates specific yet. But if you are planning on making this more readily available, make sure you let people know. Again, I really highly suggest at this point have a smaller group that is testing, understanding how it works. To Brian's point, it is not GA. It's not there yet. So you're going to see a lot of things that are not ready yet. So keep that in mind. All right. Moving on, another Teams one. This is in addition to one that happened earlier this year. So if you're familiar, in Teams, we have this ability to be able to do collaborative annotations. And collaborative annotations basically means is that if I'm in a Teams meeting and I want to mark something up, I can do that. Well, now here in standard late July to mid-August and GCC DoD, or GCCH and DoD early August to mid-August, we're going to have the ability to go out of and still be doing our share, right? And not have the annotation happening, but click out of it so that I can click through things, get to a spot where I want to, and then I can jump back into annotation mode, basically is what it's giving us the capability of doing. All right, so it allows us to click on that underlying content that we happen to have. But this is a change you might want to, especially if you have people utilizing this collaborative annotations piece, the ability to be able to understand what's happening with this. All right. So I don't know about you. I have an iOS. I love CarPlay myself, but it's kind of a hassle, especially wrapped around if I get a call and I want to make a call to maybe somebody I have on my speed dial or a recent call. And then I need to, unfortunately, touch my phone, and we don't want that to happen. So now we got this capability starting here mid-July to late early August for GCC and commercial. GCCH and DoD September to October to be able to access your speed dial or your recents so that you can actually see that history and then continue from there from the CarPlay, Apple CarPlay side of things. And then another one, it's actually been rolling out. And I was looking through the history of this particular message. It seems like it just literally popped up like within the last 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, like, oh, hey, it's here. Okay, well, standard, it's already here. July, GCC, August, GCCH, and September in DoD, but it's really that we'll have what's called a compact checklist. So that chat list compresses. So you don't see everything, but if you hover over it, it shows you all the rest of that information. Basically, you could do it in settings. You can go to compact mode, and you'd be able to make it a little bit easier to see everything, hide some information so not everybody can see it, those types of things. It is rolling out to desktop and web at this point. Not on mobile at any point, but make sure you let your users know that this is happening in the case. And if you notice, especially in this screen here, you'll see it's very compact. Not a lot of space in between things, so you can literally just scroll down through things very easily. All right. And then we do have, and this is rolling out here, starting, and you notice the list, the new experience in search with chat and channels. So basically what they're doing is making it a little bit easier to stay more in context of where you're at. So you'll have this right panel that's going to pop open, and you're going to be able to do your searching from there, and you can access it through the information panel if you have a channel. If you're in a chat or a group chat, that type of thing, it stays right there, so you can then figure out what you want to look for. And then it actually shows you highlighted word key search, right? So if I put in this case, August, it's going to highlight that August in my search results. So it's easier to be able to pinpoint what I'm looking for, right? So some things to keep in mind on this. Again, this is another change that you might want to let your end users know about what's going on. And it is affecting in chat, right? So individual one-on-one group chat and in-channel experiences. That's where you're going to see this change. All right, some quick mentions. I did want to mention a couple of things. For those who are utilizing Power Platform, you may see a change with SKUs and the actual license names, especially from an administrative perspective. Power Apps per user SKU is going to be renamed Premium per user. Also, the attended RPA per user is going to be changed to Premium per user, or Premium per user for the Power Automate side of things. And guess what? We get a reduction in price. That's a like I should get a whole bunch of claps on that sucker, from $40 to $15 per user per month. That's a big one. The other one, and this one just literally hot off the press, updates to the free LinkedIn content for Viva Learning. If you're familiar, if you have Viva Learning and you've done this already, you got 150 courses. Well, they're jumping that up to 350 courses that are free from that LinkedIn premium service that you can then utilize within Viva Learning. Also, the custom template, list template that is coming out. Notice this is something that if you have a custom template, a list template that you want to have, and you want to include a Power Automate flow, you will be able to do that here fairly shortly. It looks like in July here that we'll be able to get that done. Admins can create this template and add the Power Automate right in there so that they can then, when somebody deploys that particular list, then they'll get that Power Automate right away. Also, there's some nice things happening with lists that I like. In fact, I've been playing around with this a little bit myself. One of the things is what I really like is, I don't know if you guys, in lists, you know, you have views, right? So you can change a view, create a whole bunch of views. Now you can set them up to be tabs inside that view that you're in, or that list that you're in. So you click on a tab to change the view, as opposed to click on a drop down, choose what your drop down is. So it's a lot easier to go through that. Personally, I really like that capability. Also, you can do who's collaborating in real time. So if you have a list that a lot of people is updating, you can actually see who's doing what in that particular list. Add ratings. You can actually drag or paste images right into that list. So a lot of changes happening with this Microsoft List update experience. And then there's a little bit of a change in the OneDrive sync account detection. You may see this. In fact, funny enough, this morning when I got into work, guess what I saw? This. So in OneDrive, pops up a little message that says, hey, by the way, do you have a consumer account that you want to also start doing things with? And by the way, admins, you can disable that if you don't want that to happen. As I mentioned, the updated updated messages, there's a lot going on here. Again, check what's going on within your organization. Just in general, some of the things that really caught my eye is, number one, the Stream Classic web part. Number one, I hope you're not doing Stream Classic. You've moved off of that, but if you haven't, understand the web part's going to retire August 15th, and you should be utilizing the new Stream on SharePoint web part. So that should be available. Also, Teams mobile client chat details, you're going to get a little bit more information on that. By the way, the dates shifted, as I mentioned. The one I was mentioning, and that was, by the way, last month we talked about that. The one that got pushed, and I'm trying to remember which one that was. It was, now I can't remember. I thought I had a note on it, but I guess I don't. But really, a lot of these get pushed back a little bit. So I think it was like the two-way chat, lobby chat. This is for virtual appointments. This one actually changed, the date slipped a lot, not just by a little, but a lot. So you notice it says October to December. It used to be July to September. Also, the new channel experience in general got pushed back for general availability, and that is where the chats go to the top, right? So all your recent chats go to the top. Starting a new chat goes there. There's some little changes that are also going to be seen in there. That's happening starting here late July into early August. And then finally, I do want to hit some admin actions, some things to keep in mind. And I could not believe this when I read this in the message center. The word info path came back. And I don't know about you, but I'm a longtime SharePoint guy. And yeah, I know. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So end of support for InfoPath and InfoPath form services in SharePoint is July 14th, 2026. My God, I hope you guys get your butts off of InfoPath. If you haven't, make sure that you use some of the tools that we have available. And the message center post actually has links to the assessment tool, and it will generate a Power BI report so you know who the culprits in your organization are. But keep that in mind, guys, very important, especially these admin dates. Stream Classic is in here, April 15th, 2024, Stream Live Events replacement, and so on and so forth. But make sure you guys are checking these out and keeping abreast of these situations. So, well, Michelle, I think that was interesting. I got to say the word InfoPath again. So
yeah,
other than that,
sorry.